Hello?
Hello, you're not alone.
Ah.
Wait, could you hear everything I said before that?
Yep.
Ah, shit.
I kid.
What did you hear?
Yeah, can you repeat what we said?
Is it all three of you?
No.
No, it's not all three of you.
No, it's not all three of us.
Just you and Ileana.
Yeah.
How
No,
was your round yesterday?
just kidding.
My round?
Yeah.
It was a little on the bad side.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Well, it's 'cause I just started working out again. It's not an excuse, but I've been extremely sore and I've been like trying to roll out and everything, and I still feel super sore. Oh, did he kick me out?
No.
I'm gonna mute you. We're gonna get started in a minute.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Are you talking to me, Coach?
Yeah,
Hey, how's it going?
You're the only one unmuted.
Okay.
I was they added a new feature on here, screwed me up. I had to ask to unmute you apparently.
Yeah, no, that kept popping up on my phone.
That was weird. I'm a rookie of this technological stuff.
Hey, you and me both.
Right? I didn't think I was that old. Yeah, we might have a small group. I went in a couple more, so I just want to say hi. I'll come back to you. I've got
Okay.
you. Let's see. Ooh. I got you lined up to share third on our list of recent tournaments, so just be ready for that. Probably about
Okay.
15 minutes in or so.
Okay.
Alrighty, I'm gonna mute you while I get other people in here. I'll talk to you
Sounds
soon.
good. All right.
All right, everybody, we have a couple people on. We'll probably wait about a couple more minutes to get started. I know we've got at least one or two more that I know are going to be on here. We might have a skinny crowd, but we're going to go ahead and just do it as though there's a bunch of people. We're going to go ahead and record it all as usual. That way we have some good information to post online, and you can look back on it as you need or as you feel necessary. So just a couple more minutes, and we'll get rolling. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, I got a couple more that might pop on as we go here. And we'll go ahead and get rolling. Got a couple of things for you. Got a number of slides. There's going to be a few reminders and then a few new things for everybody. Again, going to do this as though we have a full group to make sure that we have all the information we need going forward. And we'll go ahead and get this started here. So one thing just to start with everybody. Obviously, there's been a lot going on in the world since our last Zoom. We're not going to get into the nitty gritty of all of that. We all have our experiences and thoughts and feelings and opinions. Quick note before we go into the recent tournaments, just to kind of let you guys know what's been going on. Been having great discussion with people out here. Not so great discussion with people on certain online forums, not picking fights, obviously, but having discussion. And it's amazing how difficult it becomes, especially with all that's going on. One thing that did come about, though, and something I'd like you to make sure that you all adhere to going forward is, in one of the discussions, a gentleman gave me a very strong opinion about what he felt was possible or impossible. And I mentioned to him in one of the closing statements that a friend of mine out here and I have been having an awesome conversation. And what he came about as a very young man was that he has chosen to make the most out of what he has full control over. What he has full control over is his mindset. And somebody might come up and argue with him or disagree with him or whatever, and that's fine. But the fact that he's made a choice to move his life forward, regardless of what everybody else is telling him to do, is going to produce great things for him. So we've all talked about that individually in terms of your golf. As we get in more into this restart mode, you're going to have more opportunities to prove to yourself that your belief systems are strong and you can move in that direction that you have full faith in. So that being said, again, not going to go crazy with it. We're going to go ahead and move into this first slide here. I've had 3 players that have played tournaments this last week or two. Some successful, some learning opportunities, but nice to see people getting back out there. So I'm going to have the 3 of you share just a little bit. Chase has a little bit of a time commitment, so we're going to make hers first and fairly brief. But Chase, be as thorough as you can for me. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you now. and just share a little bit about what you experienced during this last event and your overall thoughts and feelings about it.
Hi, Kelly. My last tournament, it was a pretty good success. I played really good despite the weather and like the tournament I was playing in. It was a pro tournament, and I shot 3 under, even 3 under for a 6 under total, and I still came in 7th place. But overall, it was a really good experience for me. I played with a really good pro. You guys might know her, Haley Moore. She's went to Arizona. She's really good. She gave me a lot of insight on like the pro life and how she transitioned from college to pro, and how like the scores really just matter only against the course and not against others, and that's where she had trouble most of the time. She was playing against other people and not the course, and she just gave me a lot of advice during our round, and I ended up tying her on the last day, which made me feel good because I mean she's a very prominent player and she's in the spotlight a lot, and it's really nice to like tie a girl that is a pro, and it's really nice. So yeah.
All right. Did she hit the ball way past you as she's been doing throughout her career? No.
Oh no, I actually outdrove her about 5 times.
Really?
Yeah.
Was she longer in the irons than you were, or did that settle down as well?
I think she was a little bit longer. I think she was like maybe half a club longer, but nothing too drastic.
Okay. And was she pretty verbal with you? Or I mean, I know growing up she didn't really speak a whole lot and her emotions were very close to the surface. Is that still the case, or do you feel like she's grown up quite a bit?
Oh no, she's definitely grown up quite a lot, and she talked to me immediately on the first hole. She knew who I was. We played together like 5 years ago, and she remembered who I was. So it was really nice to talk to her again.
Okay. Sounds like she's come a long way. I mean, obviously I've known her since she was a young girl playing golf, and she was always a little different in many ways, but always an exceptional player. And it's been fun to watch her develop, just watching her at national championships even. So glad you got an experience like that. We'll probably unpack that a little bit further. I know you got to get somewhere. So one question for you before you do go is what do you think are 3 things that you'll be doing as you continue through your collegiate career to position yourself and make sure that you're ready for the next level?
I think I will start looking at golf at a different way, instead of like being so caught up in scores all the time, and just focusing on like just achieving small goals and not looking at score. Developing a stronger, like, I don't know, just a stronger mind mentally, and not getting as so pissed off as I used to. And 3, just being grateful for all the opportunities that come my way.
Okay. And do you think that this experience with Haley has affirmed things that we've already discussed, or were those 3 things fairly new information for you?
I think playing with her, they affirmed what we've talked about.
Okay, very good. Well, again, thank you for your time. I know you got a fun and busy evening. Make sure y'all are safe, please, and definitely enjoy your time with all your friends. So thanks for your input. I'm going to let you go now and have a very fun night.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. So before we get to Colin, real quick for everybody on here and anybody who might listen to this later on, Chase and I started our working relationship about 3 years ago, 3.5 maybe now. And one of our first conversations / get to know you meeting with her and her family, I said to her that I need her to let me coach her in the corner of her heart where all of her fears come from. And she gave me a look like, I don't want to let you in there, but at the same time, I trust you enough for you to be in there. And it's been pretty incredible to watch her grow. Little different conversation there with gals versus guys, obviously. But definitely a place I want all of you to explore. Because as you go through and you move from high school to college or college to pros, whatever the case might be, you are going to have the opportunity to kind of reflect and figure out where your strengths are and where your areas of improvement need to be. But ultimately, again, you need to really focus on what you have control over. All right, so next up is Colin. Colin just played his first tournament, I believe, since this craziness started. It was an AJGA at Michigan. I was looking at scoring patterns. Everything looked pretty stable. Colin, I'm just going to ask you to give us a little insight into things, but also specifically based on what we talked about. Was our preparation on point? And if not, please tell me why. And just your overall experience getting back to competition, maybe a little background for people regarding how you used to handle yourself in competition, and if this tournament was a big change for you mentally or emotionally, how that came about. It's all yours. Colin, you there?
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted there. Sorry.
That's all right. No problem. Go ahead when you're ready.
Yeah. No, so I was like, what I was saying was, Kelly and I had like a couple of really extensive phone calls before, I went up to Michigan for my tournament. And I think the one thing that, we were really focused on was, my attitude and preparation before heading into the tournament. And, going into the tournament, I was actually like, I was a little nervous because it's been a couple months since I played. And this is a tournament I played a couple months ago. And I felt like my game has been trending in a positive direction, which was a huge confidence boost. But at the same time, like I wanted to achieve a lot. Like, my goal going in was, hopefully, winning. Because, I think one of the things that Kelly always says to me is like, if you're not going in trying to win, then why are you going to go compete? I think I took that really to heart because I went in, genuinely, believing that I could win. And even after the tournament, I still think I could have won. I think I finished like 4 or 5 strokes behind the leader. But I played the practice round a day before the tournament, as per usual for AJGA. And I didn't like the course very much. There's a lot of dog legs. I like to play pretty aggressively off the tee, and even with irons in the hand. But it was a lot of, I think I counted like 10 dog legs out of the 18 holes. So it put me in a pretty uncomfortable position for the tournament. But overall, I think I handled it pretty well. And I think, a key thing I took away from this tournament was, taking the medicine. Because there was a lot of times where, there was a pin that looked like I could go for it, or, there was like, I could, cover those trees because it was a tree line golf course. I could like, cut the corner or whatnot. But at the end of the day, I don't, if if I was like behind a tree instead of trying to take the hero shot, I would just, take the medicine and punch out. And I think, my scoring patterns, as Kelly said, it showed pretty well. So overall, I think it was, the second day I didn't play very well, but I still shot even. So I think it was a good confidence boost. So yeah.
Okay, that all sounds really good. I mean, obviously, our phone calls were based upon some strategy, having a decent idea of what the course would be like. It sounds like you handled yourself in a mature way. I think, as we discussed a couple of years ago when you played in the event, if you got in that same situation, you probably wouldn't have gone the same route. So I like that a lot. And tell me this: when you did have to punch out, did you hit a number of different clubs, or was it always the same club? What strategy you take in that situation?
It I use a variation of different clubs when I had to punch out. Like one thing I took into consideration, because I know I talking to you a lot lately, was like, working on the on my yardages and my wedge system. And instead of just like, I think I used to, what I would do is I just punch out or have a random yardage in. But instead, I kind of paced it out and I looked at like, where's the, if I punched out, what would my next shot look like? How would my attack angle into the pin look like? And what yardage would I leave myself? Would it be a comfortable yardage or not? So a lot of the times it was different. There was a couple times, I just had a 54 in my hand and I just chipped it out and I had like, 140 in, or I kind of skipped one across with a 7-iron. So it was a variation of clubs.
Okay, very good. So something just to piggyback off of that for you and everybody else in here, anybody else who listens to it going forward, is I would love for all of you guys to develop enough shot inventory to hit a 7-iron 100 yards. I know that sounds a little crazy, but a lot of times when we think of a punch shot, we tend to use a club that has way too little loft, and we tend to strike down on the ball, and it maybe moves through the fairway or curves too much. Something is a little bit more aggressive than it needs to be. If you guys can create like a probably a 3-2.5 or a 2-2.5 motion with that 7 iron, you'll start to see that the ball bends very gently, be it a fade or a draw or a slice or a hook, whatever it needs to be. But ultimately, if you guys can hit that 7 iron 100 yards, you have a really good foundation to start building off of that for the shapeability for these shots, also trajectory control, and that you're limiting the spin potential because you're not feeling like you got to strike down in the golf ball like crazy to keep it extremely low. Then Colin, one last question for you then. When you found yourself in that situation, so say you were able to, float a 7 iron out from beneath the trees and you had like a 60 to 75 yard shot. Did you have enough shot inventory to execute that with confidence? And regardless of whether you did or did not, did you feel like you put yourself in a position in an organized manner in doing so? Was that shot fairly successful or not?
I think it was. I mean, I think the second day I had to punch out from the fairway 4 times, and I got up and down 3 times. So I think I was pretty successful in terms of like leaving myself and executing my plan pretty well. Um, I think I also had a pretty pretty well built shot inventory to execute the shot as well. Because I think it used to be like I was putting so much pressure, like I have to make it up and down, like because I'm already out of place now. I have to make par. But like this tournament, I would like be under the tree, punch out, and I just while I was walking up to my ball, I wasn't nervous at all. I was just like, it's just what I've been practicing lately. So I mean, there's literally just exactly what we've been practicing. So there's no pressure. Worst case scenario, you walk off with a bogey. So
Okay, very good. And again, I didn't know you 3 years ago. I knew of you, but that's the maturation in your description of what's going on is phenomenal. And as we've always talked about, you and I and everybody else on here, and in the past, we've talked about obviously executing the shot that you're on, but the stress of feeling like you have to get to a certain point puts a lot more of that tension and again stress on the one shot. So I think as we've discussed too, if you roll the ball well when you putt, then you're confident you're putting. If you're confident you're putting, you're confident you're chipping, and then you're pitching, and then intermediate wedges. And the more intermediate wedges you build, the more opportunities you have to put a quality strike in the golf ball, regardless of where you are or how you got there. You know that you're going to put yourself in a good position. So I mean, great job. We'll unpack that individually a little more as we go this month, but it sounds like you did really well. And again, me just reading through scoring patterns online, you're not winning tournaments by playing golf the way you did, but you're also not ever going to put yourself in a position where you don't have the opportunity to win with a really good round. So, I'm excited to see where that came from. I know that's maybe a stark contrast to how you dealt with things in the past, and great job on that. So thank you for your feedback. I'm going to go ahead and mute you now. We're going to move on to Hayden. So Hayden played in the qualifier. It was a Cal-Am qualifier. He played at Goose Creek out in Norco. I know most of you have played there, are familiar with the golf course. Not exactly the hardest course off the tee box, couple crazy holes, but I think Goose Creek is definitely a course that we could confidently call a second shot type golf course. Obviously, every shot is important, but with a second shot golf course, in the case of Goose, you'd be hard pressed to miss some of those fairways. So really what you're left with is, are you positioning yourself for your second, and how do you handle your second shot? And if they come tournament time, they can get the greens pretty firm. Not sure if they were or not. So Hayden, when you start up here, I'd like you to describe course conditions just a little bit so we have an idea. But don't get too crazy with it. But if we get to a point where the greens are really firm, it definitely causes you to handle that course differently. So little course condition, a little bit how you handled yourself. What successes did you have? What did you come away with that you can work on? Go ahead and give us the full rundown, and we're looking forward to hearing it. Hayden, are you
Could
with
you
us?
guys?
There you go.
Okay.
That's
Darn.
the first we've heard. Go ahead and start over.
Okay. Well, so the course was in what I thought great condition. I was going there for about a week to 10 days before the qualifier, getting some practice in, and I noticed they were just doing a lot of watering. The greens were really soft, very receptive. The grass wasn't too luscious. The rough wasn't long. It was just really nice. It looked nice. It didn't look like a lot of people have been playing on it. Not a lot of ball marks on the green, not a lot of divots in the fairways. So it was really fun to play on a course like that. As for me in the tournaments, I was just really excited. For a lot of you guys that don't know me, Kelly and I have been really working on building a better backswing. And some of those balls that I've been mishitting or have been going a little left and right are starting to go straighter. And so for me to be able to go and showcase the fact that I'm making improvements with my game, I was just like ecstatic. The sensory feedback I feel in a tournament setting is amazing. And to use a movie reference, this might make some of you laugh, but like when Spider-Man says his spidey senses are tingling, I feel like that for when I play. I can just feel and see everything, and I love the feedback that I've been getting now with the new swing that we've been working on. And one of the things that I used to struggle with was the first tee. So me focusing on that with the extra added excitement of me being better as a golfer, I was just itching to play. And so something that I took away from that was I came out on the first hole and just hit a beautiful straight drive with my driver, which was awesome to see. And just the joy of me compressing the ball and seeing the ball go straight in the fairway, especially after the two other guys I was playing with didn't hit the fairway. It just gave me an extra boost of confidence for the day. And something that I haven't necessarily put enough work in is the wedge system and building my shot inventory. So for what Kelly had said about it being a second shot golf course, I was really trying to keep it simple with what I was doing throughout the round. And on that first hole, I had 44 yards to a back pin, and I gripped down on my 50 and took it back to about a 2 and just hit this chip shot that kind of landed and released towards the back pin. And it was nice to know that even though I hadn't been working on things like that, the correct backswing or the better backswing that we're building is kind of letting other things fall into place. There were a lot of positives from the round. I didn't necessarily play well on the back, and we were making some setup adjustments with my posture in regards to my driver. So a few balls I hit off the tee in the back, take those away. I put together a pretty good round, but besides that, I definitely learned a lot, and I'm excited to keep playing these tournaments because I have another one here on the 14th. So just looking forward to that.
Okay, so you said you had 44 yards to a back pin. What was your intended carry for the 50?
38. It took 2 hops and kind of just stopped. It was going up a hill.
Yeah.
Like there was the kind of tier there, and I wanted to just hit it into the tier.
Okay. And would you say that it was more of like a hard checking motion, or did it just hit that hill in that second hop and kill momentum?
It definitely kind of killed momentum. It wasn't hard. It was a very soft shot.
Okay. And what is the bounce in your 50 degree?
Oh, I'm not sure. I think. Let's see. 8.
Okay. So just for your sake and everybody else's, when you have a shot like that, if you were to hit a shot that would land at 38 to go 44 with a 50 with low bounce, you're definitely going to see kind of a low to mid trajectory. You're going to get, if you were able to hear the ball hit the green, you would actually hear a lot of spin in the first hop. It wouldn't necessarily have enough backspin versus forward momentum to check and come back, but it will definitely bite fairly hard. versus if you had like an 11 or 12 or even higher bounce than that in a 50-degree, you're going to get more of that mid to high launch, and the ball will land and release. I think you hit a really good shot there. It sounds like you planned and executed it well. But just something for everybody to consider, especially as you go throughout the summer. Courses get a little more traffic on them. Poa annua greens are going to tend to have a little more thatch in the summer. They can't cut them nearly as close. So what you're going to get on Poa annua is the ball that just kind of hits like it's landing in styrofoam. So if you guys do have higher bounce options on your lower lofted wedges, really consider working with that mid to middle high launch and seeing how the ball is going to release as it goes up a slope specifically, versus sometimes when you get, later into July, into August, and that thatch has grown up a little bit, the higher spin potential of a lower bounce wedge may not be the best option in that case. So again, good job. I mean, obviously there's not many people in the world that are going to grab a gap wedge from 44 yards, regardless if it's a back pin or not. So your playing partners probably thought you were on some good kind of grass, not Poa annua, but it sounds like you pulled it off pretty well. So obviously, I'm not going to throw out scores and go crazy because I know it wasn't the greatest round on paper, but would you say that there was just a couple things throughout your round that maybe did you in, if you will, versus what could have been a really excellent round from the choices it sounds like you were making?
Absolutely. For example, on the fourth hole, I hit the stick on the fly and it kicked my ball out of bounds, and I ended up taking a double. And mentally, I was excited because I didn't let that get me down, and that made me go 4 over on the front on the fourth. And then I played pretty solid golf all the way to the 12th tee box. I finished with 4 pars on the front, and I had 4 pretty good looks at birdie as well. I birdied the 11th hole. I had a really good tee shot and made a nice putt, and then that's where I think some setup adjustments with my drive, where I hit 2 balls off the tee out of bounds. You take those away, I might not have had such a high score there towards the end.
Okay. Would you say that you were feeling pretty stubborn in doing stuff like that, or was it more so that maybe the excitement got to you a little bit because your expectation for a good shot was so high?
It was definitely the excitement. I remember something I struggled with was when I started to feel those emotions in a round of golf, that I would not necessarily shy away from them, but I would attempt to slow my tempo down so I wouldn't hit the ball, and that would cause some swing mechanics. So walking up to the 12th tee, especially after birdieing the 11th hole, I was telling myself, okay, let's just let it go and, keep the free feeling swing going. And I think I just swung a little bit big. And because I didn't necessarily dislike the way that the ball felt coming off the face. It was still a good feeling to me to hit that. It just was not good for that hole.
Okay, very good. Well, we'll probably go from that. Again, a couple of takeaways from Hayden's round for everybody. They're really developing that wedge inventory. I know I sound like I'm beating a dead horse, and I'm not trying to get famous with this thing, but there is such great power. I worked with a kid the other day. He was born with significant physical complications to the point where he wasn't supposed to be able to walk. He wasn't supposed to be able to do a lot of things. And here he is swinging a golf club, and he's made such great strides physically, and he's moving very well. He's going to be forever limited as far as distance is concerned, but even more of a reason to really hammer on the wedge inventory. We get in there and we start developing a gap wedge at about 68 or 72 yards, I think it was. And the first one that he hit, it carried 62, I think it was. And it landed a bunker on the range on the SkyTrack software or whatever. And it didn't roll out at all, but it carried 62. And it's very interesting, very well struck ball, very good trajectory, very good ball control. But when he looked at that number, he thought, man, it didn't go far enough. I didn't give him a number to hit it. I just said, hit a 3.5 for me. And after that, he hit 178 yards. And I asked him why he hit it so much farther. He goes, because this club should go farther than that. And, I know we've all been in that place with the wedge system, but what I would really ask of everybody here is, as you're developing these shots, as you're gathering data, whether it's distance or direction or whatever else you use to quantify your success, that you swing to the motion and you write down the number, and don't let your mind get cluttered with expectations of what a certain shot should go. You know, if it goes 58, it goes 58. If it goes 91, it goes 91. To that point too, if you have a shot where if you hit like a 2-3-50 and maybe that goes 85 yards, but then you go to a 3-3-50 and it goes 3 yards less, you know, either you allow yourself to understand that that's accurate or start to understand what had happened that caused that ball to go shorter, you know, and there's any number of things that can occur, but be very honest with yourself about moving through the motion and accepting the data, accepting the feedback, and adjusting if necessary, but don't adjust based on what you think it should go. Adjust based upon any elements of movement that you want to improve. Okay, so Hayden, I'm going to go ahead and mute you. We're going to get this next slide here, just so we don't run on for days. One thing about year round that I really like, you know, and again, if we're looking at this hole by hole overall score, it doesn't really tell the story. You know, Hayden's done a really great job putting some good practice sessions together and made significant improvements with his motion. And by significant, I mean probably the most drastic I've seen without laying a hand on somebody to help them feel the movement. So a lot of great things are coming in that way. And I think this is a great place to start and definitely a good springboard to get you moving on to the next one. All right, so going with that, we're going to go to the next slide. Couple of things for everybody, and this has been a little bit of a struggle for some. When you guys add an event to your calendar, go ahead and just add it like you're putting it on your own calendar. Make sure you're using your Google Calendar, or if you have access to it, if you don't have a Google or Gmail address, and then invite me via email. I'll get an email that has all the details on there for me. If you put it on your own calendar, it will not automatically come to me. I will not see it. Okay, if you're not sure when you do it, go ahead and text me just to confirm, and I'll tell you if I got it or not. I really want you guys to use this as an organizational piece, so we get into this structured time rather than, oh, I have a problem, let me text Kelly to see if he's available right now. Even if I am, I'm probably going to tell you no. And it's not because I don't want to talk to you or trying to take advantage of you. I simply want you to get to a place where you get a little more used to a structured time, structured schedule. Because as you go forward, the only way you're going to be successful in this game is if you treat your golf like a business. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that because I need you to be overly serious all the time, but the organization of it has to be there so that when you have success, you clearly understand why. And in that, you can enjoy it to its fullest. Second point here is going to be to please trim your videos. I don't have any issues with data. I've got unlimited data, and most of you do as well. But I want you to, same idea. It's a matter of attention to detail. When you record a swing, trim the swing to maybe a half a second before you swing and a half a second after you finish. I don't want to watch you walking up to your golf ball. I don't want to watch you readjusting your camera, different things like that. It sounds petty. I'm not going for that. It's simply something where when you send something off to me, you know, right now, I'm just your swing coach, right? Later on, if you're doing the same thing to somebody way more important in your life than I am in terms of your career, I want you to be paying attention to great detail in such a way where you're proud of what you send. And this is a great time to learn how to do it and make sure the product is clean and concise. Okay, the last bit is the camera height and angle. We want to roughly be about waist high for the camera height. Angle needs to be as straight on as you can get it, either down the line or face on, doesn't matter. Not that I can't interpret the movement, but I want you to make sure that when you get your video evaluations back, that it's visually accurate for you. All right, next one, we're gonna go with practice models. So we don't necessarily have drills here, but these are things that I'd like you to incorporate. I didn't break them down in any greater detail, but I would like you to take a little time to reflect on them. Okay, the loft versus trajectory is going to be just what we talked about. The loft in a 50-degree wedge with a higher bounce versus lower bounce. The bounce is going to control the trajectory and ball reaction. I want you to be mindful of that when you're working with your wedges. Don't get wrapped up in the idea that a 50-degree has to go lower than a 54. If you have a higher bounce 50 and a lower bounce 54, there is a good chance with some motion that they're going to look opposite of what you would expect. The 50 with the higher bounce is actually going to launch higher and spin less than is your lower bounce 54. Okay, on to the 3-club challenge. 3-club challenge is very simple. I want you to pick a target. Just for the sake of argument, we're going to pick a 100-yard target. If that is a stock sand wedge for you or a stock gap wedge for you, I need you to hit whatever the club is you normally hit. I'm going to have you hit the next longest club. So if you hit a stock gap wedge 100 yards, pitching wedge is next, 9-iron is the following. Okay, obviously, the further you get away from your stock swing, the more creative you're going to have to get. I would like you all to execute this a couple times this month. And the purpose being that I want you to have enough shot inventory to where, like with Hayden's 44-degree pitch, or with Colin's situation where he had to punch out a little bit, that you're not worried about things. You have a shot that will match up with any conditions that you come across. It's not going to be the most exciting thing you do as you practice, but it's definitely going to be effective. All right, graduated tee challenge is going to be as follows. This is going to be a little humbling for guys, maybe a little more challenging for ladies. What I would like you to do is you're going to start at the closest tee box that the course offers. If that's the red tee, you start there. You're going to play until you play from those tees until you make a birdie. Once you make a birdie, you're going to move back one tee box. Okay, you're going to keep on doing that. If you make a bogey or worse, you've got to move forward one tee box. And I want you to see what hole you finish up on. Another variation of this is you can start from the forward tees. If you make a birdie, you can no longer use the club that you teed off with for the rest of the round. Okay, if you make a par, you can stay put. If you make a bogey, obviously you continue moving forward. So you can add different elements into this challenge, but the idea being is that a lot of times we have the expectation that shorter tees are going to be easier. I would argue that if you can't shoot under par from the ladies' tees, you probably shouldn't walk back to the tips with your ego held high thinking you're going to win the tour championship. Okay, so think on that a little bit. I'd like you all to go through it. It's going to look a little silly. I don't really care. It's not a matter of seeing what distance is best for you. It's simply a matter of helping you learn how to get under par, how to stay under par, and how to have creative and different ways to do so. The last bit here on practice models is going to be 5-ball with intermediate wedges. Okay? We heard Hayden say that he hit the flag on the fly. A lot of times you get a much worse result by that happening than if you were to land 6 inches close to it, or away from it rather. Okay, working with 5-ball with intermediate wedges, you can create rules that do with trajectory, carry distance, ball reaction, how accurate you are against your carry distance, if that's going to be on a launch monitor or outside or whatever the case might be. If you are outside and you hit a shot, maybe getting yourself to land your next one within 1 foot of your pitch mark. Get as strict and as challenging as you'd like on those guys, but definitely use the challenge of 5-ball, the creative thought of 5-ball, and your wedge inventory of your intermediate wedges together to get yourself to a point where you create such a fun challenge for yourself that when you compete again, it almost becomes a game. All right, full motion feedback. This is going to be for everybody. I've had a number of video evaluations just this last week where we're seeing a lot of great progress, but there's definitely a few things I want to address. The idea of producing speed versus applying force. With a lot of the limited views that we've had in practice for the last couple of months being into nets or blankets or tablecloths or wherever, you haven't really had the expectation of what the ball flight's going to be. Okay, and in doing so, you probably got a much healthier example or feeling of what it was to apply a force to the golf ball and or the ground. As you go back outside, maybe you're hitting it farther, maybe you're hitting it shorter. What I'd like you to consider is when you're making a swing, especially if it's something that doesn't feel very good, you need to ask yourself, was I working to produce as much speed as possible, or was I working on being as efficient as I possibly could be to apply the maximum amount of force to a golf ball? It doesn't need to be one or the other. It can be both for different shots, obviously, but just something, a point of reflection for you to go back to and understand which one you were intending to do. And maybe if you didn't consciously intend to do it, which one showed up. Okay, now next, the shape of your weight transfer. Very important here. The spacing between your feet and the ball and the width of your stance are going to play a major role in the shape of your weight transfer. Now, for those of you that worked my body track, Matt, when you were out, or I was out in California, or if you've come to visit me, which we've had Eric, Guy, and Brendan so far, and I think Kyle's next on the list. So definitely growing and learning that. Working on the body track, though, it does give you the idea of the shape of your weight transfer, whether you're going up onto your toes, over the arches, heels, outside of the feet, yada, yada, yada. Understanding that is extremely important. When we take a wider stance, you're going to feel weight transfer in more of an oval, right? If you take a narrow stance, you're going to feel weight transfer more in like a small rectangle. You tend to pitch forward and back, toe to heel, and side to side over the outside of the arch of your feet. You don't need to have any specific movement pattern or weight or shape of your weight transfer to be successful. It's just simply something that I would like you to be aware of. And as we go through our FaceTime sessions this month or any video evaluations, we're going to start to correlate the shape of your weight transfer with how other parts of your body react. Okay, now last piece on here, and this is maybe old news for most of you, but definitely something important to understand. The difference between the path your club travels along and the face-to-path relationship. Okay, when you make a golf swing, you're coming from the inside of the target line to square back to the inside of the target line, simply because you're swinging along an arc or a circle. As you move along that, the club's going to be open, closed, or square to its path. Okay, a lot of times I've seen, or many times have I seen people turn around their body quickly. If you're right-handed, you're swinging to the left or coming around the body and the arms collapse, and it gives them the false sense of security that they're releasing the club. They are in fact keeping the club more open to their path, promoting more of a fade and probably something off of the toe. Okay, so when you're looking at your own swing, or I evaluate a video for you, we need to make sure that we control the movement of the body so we control the path of the club. When we control our mind and our hands remain on the club in a passive manner, you are going to get a very balanced face-to-path relationship. That does not guarantee perfection. What it does for you is gives you very good sensory feedback when you strike the ground. It keeps your motion as connected as it can, and helps you get a better feel for how you move against uneven lies. Okay, next slide for everybody. We're going to go now back to transitioning to competition. Again, we've had multiple examples of people competing this last week or two. That's great. They're getting back out there. For those of you who have yet to compete or have to compete in something significant, I'd like you to focus on these next few points. The visual expectation of entire ball flight is going to start your show up. Again, going from a controlled environment like a net, a screen, a blanket, indoor facility, whatever the case might be, you have a very limited field of view. And when doing so, you're forced to focus on how your body's moving and what you feel when you strike the ball. As you go back outside, you're going to have visual distractions, bunkers, trees, the cut of the grass, water, whatever the case might be, all things that are going to take you to a place where maybe it makes it difficult to visualize the entire ball flight. Okay, when I talk about visualize the entire ball flight, I still want you to break it down in the first third being bodily control, second third being your mindset, and the last third being the show as the ball falls. If you find yourself getting distracted by other elements such as trees, bunkers, or lakes, I need you to come back to the point where you can associate what you visualize for your entire ball flight and how you're going to move to strike the ball to accomplish that. That takes us directly into your speed of thought. When you do strike the ball, it takes a good number of seconds for that ball to get from where it was struck to where it's finally going to come to rest. A lot of times when you go back outside, and especially when you're competing, you're going to have a tendency to let your mind outrun the ball, meaning that your expectation for the results begins well before your motion ends. Okay? The simple version of this is hold a balance finish, but it's not that simple. Okay? I want you guys to feel like when you strike the ball, that you're watching the ball come off the club face, you're watching the ball rise, and you're watching the ball as it goes to the apex of the highest point of its ball flight and fall gently to the ground. That allows your eyes and your head to move freely with your body, keeps everything really connected, but ultimately slows down your speed of thought to the point where you don't take for granted the fact that even a well-struck ball takes a little bit of time to get there. You cannot force your will upon it. It's going to get there when it gets there. And the more patient you are with that, and the more you enjoy that, the better success you'll find. Now, preparation windows are going to be very quick. I know it's been a little difficult with tournaments being canceled, postponed, everything else has been going on. But when you have a tournament on your calendar, I want all of you to build out a preparation window, a preparation plan. What are you going to do 1 week prior, 2 weeks prior, 3 weeks prior, or if you have enough time, 1 month prior? Thinking about that for yourself based upon your practice plans, when you're going to play practice rounds, when you're going to go out and just play 6 holes late in the day to get it out of your system, what you're going to eat, what you're going to drink, when you're going to exercise, how and when you're going to exercise, to prepare yourself in such a way so that you peak in your performance right at the event. This is going to be specifically for Hayden. Hayden was an exercise science or something of that nature in school, has a home gym now that he's built out for himself, and has a great understanding of physiology and kinesiology. Hayden, what I'd like you to do is put together a small plan for everybody, and we'll talk about it more individually. Put together a plan to help people understand how to create peak or physical performance when it's time to perform. So if that takes a week, 10 days, 14 days, 21 days, whatever the case might be, maybe you have different models of that. I'd like you to develop something for everybody to where they can look at it and realize, if I have a week before a tournament, here's what I can do to make sure that I peak during my tournament, not the night before. All right, next go around here. Whoop, got ahead of myself. All righty, maintaining a collegiate schedule. I know for some of you, you're not in college, maybe you're beyond college. The reason I write that is there's a lot of inherent structure in a collegiate schedule. Balancing the elements of your conditioning. This is going to be everything from your sleep to your workouts, whether that's lifting or endurance, cardio, stretching, rolling out, whatever the case might be, making sure that you have a plan in place and where you balance all those elements of conditioning. Don't do one more than the other because it's convenient or you're tired or anything else. You need to make sure you have a plan and you stick to it so that when it's time to get strong, you work on strength. When it's time to be flexible, you work on flexibility, but ultimately take everything in a balanced fashion. All right, next piece is going to be practicing on a schedule rather than a feeling. Do not practice 7 days a week. I'll tell all of that right now. Do not practice, every week of the year. You've got to have scheduled breaks, you got to schedule rest to make sure that you don't get burnt out. This directly ties back into peaking when it's time to compete, right? If you're practicing every single day, you don't create any rhythm or ebb and flow, you're going to get exhausted mentally or physically. And because of that, you may not perform your best. Challenging yourself appropriately. Again, leading up to a tournament, get yourself into a place using 5-ball or 3-club challenge or that graduated tee exercise, whatever the case might be. Challenge yourself to the point that when you step on that first tee box of your tournament, you're excited because it becomes a game, not a stressful situation where you're allowing external sources of expectation to creep in and get you to a point where you fear how bad it's going to be. The last piece here before we go into a little Q&A, if anybody has any questions, is going to be creating a personal qualifying atmosphere. One of the biggest stressors in a collegiate environment is qualifying for a tournament, right? You're playing against your teammates. I argue most times that you're not actually teammates until you travel together, right? Until then, you're competing against each other to make sure you get into a spot. You want to create that feeling for yourself on the course, whether you create a target number for yourself. We don't want to use par as an external source of expectation, but rather an internal source of motivation. Get yourself into a place where you create elements that create healthy stress so that you are literally qualifying against yourself. And we can unpack all these situations, all these elements individually, but it's something I want you all to think about a little bit before we go into it individually to make sure that you are mindful of it and you're honest with yourself about how you can get the most out of this time, whether you're preparing to play in collegiate golf, you're currently a collegiate golfer, or if you're beyond that point, you're preparing to play as a professional. It doesn't really matter to me what stage of your game you're in. You need to create that personal qualifying atmosphere. Alrighty, I ran through a lot of stuff there. Believe it or not, we're coming up on an hour. It's amazing how fast these things go. But I'm going to go ahead and open this to anybody on here. Again, we've only got 4 of you. I believe you can unmute yourself. If you have a question, go ahead and unmute yourself. If we had 2 people go at the same time, we'll go ahead and deal with it. If you cannot unmute yourself, I believe you can wave to me. Go ahead and do so, and I'll unmute you from my end. Does anybody have any questions on the material or anything else that might be helpful for everybody else on here? All right, guys. We didn't have any questions there. Again, we can unpack this individually going forward. Thank you for coming on to the meeting tonight. I'll have it recorded. If you guys want that, just let me know and I'll get you the link to make sure we have it. If you need any follow-up materials from any of this, also reach out and I'll see what I can do about getting it to you in a timely fashion. You guys have a great night. Have a very happy 4th, a very safe 4th, please. You can't play golf with 9 fingers. And I will talk to you all soon.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yep.